Welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm Father Silviu Bunta again. And this short video is to introduce you to our very first book, our translation of the Simonopetra Ieratikon, to answer just a few questions about it. And of course, I'll record more videos about other issues related to our translation. Why the Simonopetra Ieratikon? Because it has impressed us from the very beginning. It is recommended in many ways. First and foremost, in terms of content, but also in terms of format. I will speak to format first, so that I get that out of the way and say more things about content. Leave the best for last, as the saying goes. The original Greek text, and so is our English translation, is published in 3 volumes. The first volume is dedicated to the Divine Liturgy of St. John the Golden Mouth and its accompanying services. What I mean by that is it has the entire office, Vespers, Matins, the hours, everything, and also seasonal services that are served at the same time as the Divine Liturgy of St. John the Golden Mouth. The second volume is dedicated to the Divine Liturgy of St. Basil the Great. And of course, just the same as the first volume, it has its accompanying services, including seasonal services served at the same time as the Divine Liturgy of St. Basil the Great, such as the Great Blessing of Water, which is here in the second volume, which is always served together with the Divine Liturgy of St. Basil the Great. And the third volume is dedicated to the Divine Liturgy of the Pre-Sanctified Gifts and its accompanying services. Again, the office, as it is served on weekdays in Lent, and other seasonal services which are being done on weekdays in Lent. Also, in terms of content, it is impressive that the Divine Liturgies are published in separate volumes with their accompanying services, without abbreviation, I should mention, so that one doesn't have to exchange one volume for another in order to find the prayers. They are repeated in the volumes. Because at no point in our 3 liturgical seasons, the seasons of the 3 divine liturgies, a priest has to change books as he moves on from Matins to Divine Liturgy, for example, or as he moves on from the Divine Liturgy to the Great Blessing of Water, for example. This makes the volumes very handy. Also, they are handy because they have an extraordinary format, not too small and not too large. A format that allows a text large enough inside to be read from a certain distance, and yet small enough to be easy to handle and easy to hold open. We also replicated, by the way, the printing quality of the original Greek volume, so that the books stay open. Of course, after a certain use, they stay open on the holy altar or a lectern, if that is the tradition. I should say that, as you may already know, and forgive me for telling you something you already know, the Ieratikon is exclusively the book of a priest. The Simonopetra tradition is publishing the liturgical books as they exist in much older manuscripts. The books were copied and are being published there as Simonopetra for the 4 liturgizers in different separate volumes. The Ieratikon is the book of the priest, as is the Diakonikon, on which I will speak later, is the book of the deacon. The Archieраtikon is the book of the bishop, and the Liturgikon, which we are translating right now, is the book of the choir, the fourth liturgizer, the people. So the prayers, the rubrics in the Ieratikon are exclusively the prayers and the rubrics of a priest. There are no rubrics for the deacon, because the deacon will have his own rubrics in the diaconicon. So the text is shorter. It can be published. All these different services can be published in a volume as short, for example, as 202 pages, the size of the first volume, which is the largest of the three. Other things have to be said in terms of format. It is the typographical conventions, which they have adopted in the original Greek edition, are truly splendid, and we try to retain as many of them as possible. For example, we made everything we could, we put in our best effort, not to split prayers between recto and verso, so that the priest doesn't have to flip pages in the middle of a prayer. We have done the same, of course, with litanies. So litanies, as much as possible, are not split between recto and verso for the same reason, so that a litany can be read without the flipping of pages in its entirety, I should say. The typographical conventions of the original Greek also, of course, refer to font size, and we have, as I hope you can see in this video from this distance, the actual text of the prayers in larger font and in black. It's a very common typographical convention. And then the rubrics in red and in smaller size, as here. The most impressive aspect, though, of the Ieratikon and of all the liturgical books from the Simonopetra monastery is the content. The content of the services is the product of a collaboration between, on the one hand, on the academic side, if you wish, or the scholarly side, Ioannis Fundulis, and on the other hand, of course, the Simonopetra community, particularly Father Hieronymus, who's the editor, the main editor of the Simonopetra liturgical books. This product is crisp, is clean. It has done away with a lot of the accretions which our services have accumulated, particularly over the last few centuries, 3-4 centuries, which do not always make sense. More often than not, do not make sense. They interrupt the fluidity of the service, which is quite obvious, actually, if we were to zoom in on these accretions. It has it has kept rubrics which constantly remind the priest that the service has only one focus, and that is Christ. So the rubrics are very often telling the priest to serve simply, to raise his voice a little, to hold the gospel before his face, so that he covers himself in order to put forth Christ. This is a mystagogy, a liturgical vision, a leading to Christ, if you wish, which is extraordinary, and yet so normal, so much the life of our church, of our tradition, that Christ is always put forth, and not ourselves. That is probably, arguably, the thing that has impressed us the most, particularly as we have taken in the actual serving with this Ieratikon at the monastery of Simonopetra. I will come back with videos, as I promised at the very beginning, about other questions having to do with the Ieratikon and broader questions, with specific questions having to do with particular translations, but also with a question as broad as our translation philosophy? Or, well, this is a very pertinent question, which I have asked myself many times. What is a scriptural guide, such as myself, doing translating liturgical texts? I will speak to those, as I said, in other videos. This one was just to introduce you to our choice for the Simonopetra Ieratikon. I hope you'll join us again. You'll watch more of our videos, you'll follow us, and you'll help us out with suggestions, questions, comments. I'm looking forward to meeting you over these waves, whichever kind of waves they are, again, soon, God willing. Thank you.